Yes. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وصلوات الله وسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك يا رب الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So it's great to be back in Al-Huda. I want to first thank, of course, Zaid Imran and the whole Al-Huda family and the board for always hooking us up, mashallah, and looking after us. And I'd like to thank the brothers and the sisters who are here present, which, to be honest, is at a very unsocial time for you guys. But we have to try and keep the, keep the actual time of the class. But of course, those people who find it a little bit difficult from a timing point of view, then I don't think that's going to be a problem, especially with the fact that you can get the recorded version afterwards as well. So for you guys, I mean, most of you will be LP students. For those, obviously, when we do a roadshow, we always mention a few things about the class for non-LP students. Of course, this is a fiqh class. It is essentially a humbly fiqh class in that the text itself that we are covering, or the manual, is a text on Islamic law as understood by the Hanbali school, by the founder Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And the text is called Zad al-Mustaqni', and the author has written it, and then the commentary has been written to it by a scholar called Sheikh al-Uthaymeen, and then I give commentary to that commentary. So I will explain what Sheikh al-Uthaymeen means, which therefore means I'm explaining what the text means, but also then adding other stuff as well, because I know that there are folks who don't understand what we're doing. Does that make the final conclusion a Hanbali conclusion? No. We give whatever conclusion the people want. If they are following a specific a madhab, then we will give that to them, but then we will share what is the class position, and then that's what will obviously go. That will be the operative position. So what are we now in? At the beginning of year 6, obviously all of the content is there on the portal. Everything is there for the previous 5 years. This material now is the beginning of year 6. We are in Kitab al-Salah, which is the book of prayer, and we are in the subchapter of Shurut al-Salah, which is the conditions of the prayer, which we formally started last week. Okay, which we formally started last week. What did we say last week? We said, وَمِنْهَا اجْتِنَابُ النَّجَاسَاتِ. I will read the Arabic, then I will read the translation. فَمَنْ حَمَلَ نَجَاسَةً لَا يُعْفَى عَنْهَا أَوْ لَاقَاهَا بِثَوْبِهِ أَوْ بَدْنِهِ لَمْ تَصِحْ صَلَاتُهُ وَإِنْ طَيَّنَ أَرْضًا نَجِسًا أَوْ فَرَشَهَ طَاهِرًا كُرِهَ وَصَحَّتْ. So that was yesterday's or last week's text. That is translated as the conditions of the prayer include avoiding filth. So we've done so many of the conditions of the prayer, and this is now following the condition of the awrah. And the subsection on the awrah was huge. It was the last half of last year, so early 2017. I advise you to go and check it out if you are interested in the matters to do with clothing, male and female, the minimum, the maximum, and the idea behind maximum, quote unquote, and then also presentation. So presenting hairstyles, colors, clothes designs, tight clothes, pictures, the issues of photography, and then makeup, and in that sense as well. So there's a lot of detail concerning that. So we finished that, and now we moved on to another chapter, which is an-najasat. Of course, we spent 3 years on purification. That is to do with the najasa in general. That is to do with purification in terms of wudu. But now we are talking about najasa with respect to the prayer and its impact upon the prayer itself. And so what did we do last week? The conditions of prayer include avoiding filth. So if one carries filth, which is of a significant nature, or allows his body or garment to come in contact with filth, his prayer is invalid. We covered that last week. That's done. If the floor is filthy but covered with layers of earth or something pure is placed over it, the prayer is disliked but remains valid. That is what we're going to cover or complete today. We just kind of introduced that yesterday. But also what we're going to cover as well is the following statement. وَإِنْ كَانَتْ بِطَرْفِ مُصَلَّى متصل صحت إن لم ينجر بمشيه ومن رأى عليه نجاسة بعد صلاته وجهل كونها فيها لم يعد وإن علم أنها كانت فيها لكن نسيها أو جاهلها أعاد. So that's what we're going to be trying to make way into today as well. What is that? If there is some filth connected to the edge of his prayer area and it cannot be dragged along with him whilst he walks, the prayer is valid. And then one more paragraph. If one observes filth on himself after the prayer but was unaware before that it was there, then the prayer is not repeated. However, if he knew it was there and then later forgot or didn't understand it, the prayer must be repeated. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. Yani, if you want to forget all the text in Arabic, whatever, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be looking at the prayer area. If there's najasa, and najasa is not dirt, najasa is filth. Okay? Najasa is not dirt, everywhere is dirty. A Muslim world is all dirty. Okay? Because of, by your standards of dirt, meaning dust and mud. And dust and mud is not dirty at all. It's absolutely pure. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen it to replace water to properly purify and clean. So what we're talking about is najasa, the feces, and a dog's saliva and whatever it is, okay? Other impure substances, which of course we covered in a lot of detail. So about where you are praying, what's the ruling? What if you're standing on it but not touching it? What is the ruling? What if you are standing on it or sitting on that najasa and you are not touching it and it's not in your immediate area but it's on a particular, part of your prayer area or mat on the edge? What if you are holding najasa? Now we did that last week. Holding najasa, let me just quickly summarize. Holding najasa was referring to najasa in two manners. Okay, holding najasa means it's on your clothes, and then that's called holding najasa because you're walking around with it and you're effectively carrying it. Okay, and the second form of carrying is actually physically carrying najasa. And if you don't understand that, what that is, then that's a urine sample, that's a feces sample. If you're taking it for an examination, going to a doctor, or if you had some other unfortunate, if you had pets and you had done, do you guys do that thing here where you have to pick up your dog feces? Yeah. So you'd be carrying the bag, for example. And then I gave the modern day application. The modern day application is mothers with children. Mothers with children are not allowed to carry their children with their nappies full because that is effectively carrying najasa. It's the same thing as carrying feces. I mean, a child, politically incorrect, but is a bag of najasa if they are 3 years old. Okay? Because we are looking at it at the children in the lens of najasa and tahara and not humanity. Sah? No time for humanity in fact, bro. So the issue there is, and we've covered that. We've said that you're not allowed to carry najasa on your body. Now, when we talk about carrying najasa in today's lesson, it's going to be a weird one. It's going to be carrying and pulling najasa. Imagine that you're holding it and you are connected to it, najasa, and I'll explain how that works or how it used to happen in the prayer. And then hopefully we're going to close off with discussing the issue of najasa being on your clothes whilst you're praying and you realizing that afterwards. What are the rulings? Do you need to repeat the prayer once you see on your clothes that you've got najasa? That's what we're going to be covering, okay? So let's jump straight into the text then. So at the bottom, so if you're on the portal, then you can see the text and you can see the Arabic sharh. And if you don't, then just try and bear with what I am saying. So at the bottom of page 227 of Sharh al-Mumti', Sheikh says, وَإِنْ دَيَّنَ أَرْضًا نَجِسَةً أَوْ فَرَشَهَا طَاهِرًا قُرِهَا وَصَحَّتْ. Yani, if we have a place where the ground is actually impure, and that could be for any reason that your imagination can think, the author, the Hanbalis, what they say, if you build upon it, or you plaster it, or you concrete over it, or you tile it, then with something which is pure, then the area itself is okay to pray on. And they said that if you've got that kind of area, which is, as I said, and you were to put a cloth on it, or a mat on it, it would also be okay. كره وصحت. It is disliked, but the prayer is valid. So when I say okay, I don't mean it's an okay thing to do. We're translating the text here. This is what the Hanbalis are saying. They're saying it is disliked to do this because they're saying that you should try your very best to go to a clean place. But if you ended up in such a place and you had to pray, not a problem. Your prayer is disliked, your action is disliked, but the prayer is valid, meaning you do not need to repeat the prayer. That is their claim. Two claims have been made, that it is disliked and the prayer is authentic, okay, or valid rather. Now when the Hanbalis make a claim, they're making a legal claim. A legal claim requires evidence, okay? So let's then analyze that whether this is correct or not. First of all, they're saying that the prayer is authentic and valid. It does not need to be repeated. Well, there's no doubt that the prayer is valid. Why? Because he's not carrying najasa. All right? He's not carrying najasa. We said that before. His body is not being touched by najasa. His clothes are clear from najasa. And while he is actually on the thing that he is touching, that's also clean. It is not najas. And so from that point of view, then he has completed the condition that we know of the prayer, that he is not in touch with najasa. So that's the first. Second, they said, وَقُرِهَ الْفِعْلِ. They said, but the action that he's doing is disliked. The action itself is disliked. Why did they say it is disliked? Because they said that لأنه اعتمد على ما لا تصح الصلاة عليه. Because he is depending upon or standing upon or using something which in its original kind of nature, the prayer would not be valid upon, i.e. the najasa which is there. I want to remind you that when we say that something is makruh, that we are making a big statement actually. It's not just that, you know, that when we are speaking with one another and we say, yeah, you know, I don't like that, or this is disliked. You know, we said before that in the Hanbali school, when Imam Ahmad said that, there's discussion that when he ever used to say makruh, it means haram. And there is an argument, of course, from the Quran, certainly Surah Al-Isra, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says makruha, okay, then it means something haram. And that is a discussion which varies from place to place in the Sunnah, and especially in fiqh. And it's it's quite easy to ascertain that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to makruh as haram in the Quran. But when the fuqaha, the jurists in legal language and commentary are using that phrase, you need to know that particular person's vocabulary, okay, and their style, and have experience with them to know what is it that they actually mean when they say such a word, okay? Most, I guess, common kind of areas where you need to know that is when a faqih, a jurist, uses the word makruh. And does he mean makruh, hated, or does he mean haram? And the other one is when a muhaddith says that something is either hasan or da'if, and by da'if he means hasan, and by hasan he means sahih, or something like that. And that's why it's very important to know what that particular individual means. So anyway, in any case, makruh is a legal term. And actually, I remember that we covered the definition of this term the last time that I was here, or one of the last times that I was here. يعني لا يعاقب فاعله, يعني the one who does it, he is not punished. ولكن يثاب تاركه. The one who leaves it though will be rewarded. So again, I repeat, what is the makruh action? Makruh action is that which if someone, he does it, a makruh action, he will not be punished for it, so he will not gain sin. But the one who leaves it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this person will be rewarded. So we know that if you are doing anything and you're doing it in the garb of religious worship, and you want reward for it, then that's an act of worship. And an act of worship requires an evidence. Okay? They put the evidence forward and they said that the reason that this act is disliked, and therefore if you avoid praying on this area, so for example, this is, imagine right here, this big carpet, it's a thick carpet. This floor underneath the concrete, let's say it is doused in urine or soaked in urine, and we put this carpet on. It's thick, it's got straw matting underneath it, it's got a base, then polypropylene, whatever, and then wool on top. It's not getting through. They're saying that for us to pray on this is makruh, and they would say that for us to dig it all out or to build another place, we'll be rewarded for that. Now when I put it in those terms, you can see there's a bit of stress there. there's a bit of pressure then to make the move, especially if someone invested a whole lot of money or whatever. So that's their argument, and this is called ta'leel. Okay, this is their illah, or this is their ta'leel, this is their reasoning. Shaykh Uthaymeen has a little joke. He goes, to be honest, their ta'leel is aleel. He goes that because ta'leel means reasoning, but aleel also means someone who's sick. He goes, so he goes that basically, their reasoning itself, is unwell, is diseased, it needs some help. So he basically criticized it. He goes, because if we're going to say that it's not permissible to pray on something which itself is pure and is a complete barrier between you and something dirty, then how on earth is anyone going to pray anywhere, in any time, in any place, in any country, in any house, in any building? He mentioned specifically houses where children are running around and this and that, and it's true. Okay, the reality is you are not in contact with najasa. So our class position, as well as Shaykh Uthaymeen's position, okay, our class position is that it is permissible to pray on najasa area as long as what you're praying on is itself clear and clean and pure and doesn't allow the najasa to come through. It's not paper thin, it doesn't allow it to come through. So whether that's concrete, whether that's a mat, janamaz, musalla, anything, okay, that's the class position. All right, and the prayer is valid without doubt. Prayer is valid and it is not disliked. It is not disliked. Why? Because there's no clear, authentic evidence to suggest so. End of story. Then the Shaykh then says, he goes, is it possible to make a mat out of something which is not formal, a mat, not formally a mat? Like, is it possible, for example, that you come to an area, imagine you're outside and everywhere is all impure, but you find a big mound of earth, that, and you start sprinkling it everywhere. Could you make your area pure? As long as you're able to get enough down and make sure that it's thick enough so that it doesn't come up, and that's it. Simple as that. So even putting that on an area, or sand, or sawdust, standard whatever is pure, on an area which is najis, as long as you completely, incapacitate effectively the najasa of that area, then it is permissible then for the person to pray on it. The prayer is not disliked, and it is valid. Okay. Now the next question. وإن كانت بطرف مصلى متصل صحت إن لم ينجر بمشيه. This is really poor Arabic, actually, and even Shaykh Uthaymeen, well, he doesn't say it's very poor, but he goes that it needs explanation because people are going to be thinking what's going on. There's two things that are now being talked about. First of all, your prayer area. Your prayer area, let's imagine the way you're praying, let's give it 1 meter width and 2 meter length. We're happy with that? 1 meter width, 2 meter length. That's a pretty big prayer area. Agreed? Okay, that's your prayer area. Let's say that that's a carpet that you're on, part of like a big carpet. So it's not a separate mat. Okay? And that could be the floor as well. That could be a forest as well. It could be anything. So that's your prayer area. We'll take that as the first example. If there is najasa on the corner or on the side and you are not touching it, your prayer is fine. Is that clear? That's the Hanbali position, and it's the class position as well. The second scenario that referring to is that imagine you now have a janamaz, musalla, prayer mat, same size or even thinner, but the corner of the prayer mat is doused in urine, or when the children have just come and done a nappy or something and it's leaked in the corner. Likewise, even though it is connected, but your actual area that you're praying on is clean, and therefore that prayer is permissible. And that's continuing on from last week as well, that said that if the floor had some spots of najasa where you went for sajda, but your hands were not touching it, your head were not touching it, and so on and so forth, then this prayer is acceptable. Now, I want to say something. In about 1 or 2 weeks' time, we're going to be discussing in detail the issue of the prayer in a toilet, and in a bathroom, and in a hammam, and in a Turkish baths, and steam rooms, and so on and so forth. And you're going to see me say something slightly different then, okay? And what I want you just to realize right now, because I don't want to, we are logically progressing, so we don't get any jump ship like this. But what I want you to recognize now is that the big difference about letting us pray here is because this is a normative prayer area. So I am talking about at home, I'm talking about your workplace, I'm talking about you being outside, and this is the only place you've got to pray, then this is where you would pray, even though there's spots of najasa, as long as you are not touching the najasa. Makes sense? So now we know from this piece of text, yeah, what was the text? Let's remind ourselves of the actual translation, that if the floor is filthy, if there is some filth connected to the edge of his prayer area, and then the sentence we're going to cover now, and it cannot be dragged along with him whilst he walks, the prayer is valid. So the first part we've done. If the prayer area is connected to filth, or part of it's filthy, that's fine, as long as you're not touching it. Now let's look at this next line, which is a bit strange, all right? It says, and it cannot be, the filth cannot be dragged along with him whilst he walks. What's this referring to? Back in the day, people had to stop and pray. And they were having animals that themselves are impure, such as, for example, a dog, and such as many scholars considered the donkey, okay, and other things like that. And so to avoid them running off and getting lost, etc., and not avoiding you guys to to pray, what they would do is they would tie a rope around it, and then it would be attached obviously to what is najis, and then you would be holding it either in your hand or tied around your wrist, or actually tied around the waist. Okay, so the idea here then is, so that's what they mean first of all. Secondly, they've added this point, and they've said that as long as you are unable to drag it, then your prayer is okay. But if you are able to drag it, then the prayer is not okay. So I'll give you some scenarios that Shaykh Uthaymeen gives. He goes, so a donkey, a small dog, and then he mentions a boulder. You know what a boulder is? Big boulder? Yeah? Big rock. Well, I have no confidence in your Canadian English whatsoever, yeah? So I'm always going to check. Big rock, yani, okay? I think you guys have a place called Boulder close by. It's in Colorado. And they named it because there's lots of big boulders there? Yeah, so maybe you guys have a bigger raptor boulder than we have. I don't think we've got any boulders. Anyway, so boulder and then a small rock or a small stone. Let's assume that the donkey is najis. We're going to assume that the dog is najis as well. We're going to assume that the big boulder is smeared entirely in najasa, completely smeared in najasa, and the rope is around it. And we're going to assume that the small rock is also smeared in najasa. The idea here is that the prayer would not be valid if you are holding onto the big rock, the small rock, and the dog. And if you were on the donkey, the idea is that you're not able to pull the donkey if he goes the other way. If you pull, because it's a hard work, that is, yeah. To be honest, it's very difficult to pull a donkey. When he makes his mind up, it's not going. That's why they say stubborn as a donkey, isn't it? They say stubborn as a donkey or stubborn as a camel? Donkey, yeah. I think stubborn as a camel as well. And you said no camel down? But that's also true. So anyway, and the big boulder, definitely not a problem, because no one's moving that. Where's the idea coming from? The Hanbalis are basically saying that if you're able to pull it, then this is like it's connected to you. And if it's connected to you, it's like an extension of your thawb. It's an extension of your body. So they said right at the beginning, man hamal in najasa, yani whoever carries najasa, then his prayer is invalid. Yes? So this is their kind of istinbat, yani from that statement, that if you're holding on to something that you can pull, then that's something which is going to be, it's like you carrying it. All right, that's their argument. Shaykh Uthaymeen, he is not impressed with this argument at all. Okay, in fact, he says, well, so is that clear in terms of what the author and the Hanbalis are going with? Okay, it's very clear what their argument is. The argument is that if you are connected to najasa and it's small, then you are, one, physically connected via some extension of your body. Two, because you can pull it, then it's really something that you should consider as something like you're connected to properly, that you are owning, whereas something bigger is not. Shaykh Uthaymeen says, وَالصَّحِيحِ, and this is in the middle of page 230, أَنَّهَا لَا تَبْطُلُ الصَّلَاةِ فِي كِلْتَا السُّورَتَيْنِ, that in all of these scenarios, okay, the prayer is not invalidated. Neither whether you are able to pull it or whether you're not able to pull it. Whether it's small, whether it's big. The prayer is not invalidated at all. لأن النجاسة هنا لم يباشرها ثوبه الذي هو سترة صلاته. Because simply the najasa has not touched his clothes, which is the key aspect in this prayer. It's what is covering him or her, and that is what is the ruling is based upon, either on the body or the clothes. And the rope is something which is in between, and it has maintained that distance from me. It is not connected at all. And the Shaykh says, neither has it connected to his clothes, لا بقع صلاته ولا بدنه. And he also adds another one, which is good. He says, neither is the area, neither is the clothes, neither is his body been touched by najasa. ولا حاجة تدعو إليها as well. And there's a need for this as well. It wasn't something done out of fun. No one in his right mind is going to say, let me tie myself to a big rock full of whatever. Okay, unless he's lost his mind. And then if he's lost his mind, his prayer is okay anyway. Right? So it's not a problem. But this is not a normal situation. These are people from old school. Now people don't carry their animals around with them. This is people in the desert, people who are traveling, people who are poor, etc. So there was a maslaha, there was a need, a haja, that makes the issue easy. And then even if we don't make the issue easy, legally arguing. Because I told you guys before, as a student of knowledge, and as you train yourself, you must always avoid resorting back to the haja darura. This is called lazy fiqh. Okay? It's lazy fiqh of everything's a need and everything, and it's difficult. No. What you should do, and this is what we mean by taqwa qabla al-fatwa. Because when you're going for haja darura, what you want is not fiqh. What you want is a fatwa. Alright? And we say, get yourself out of the problem by fiqh. Look at the legalities and see whether there's space there. Don't change it, but see and understand the issue. And that's what Shaykh Uthaymeen is saying. He's saying here, and you see him repeat this thing again, this maxim again in a few minutes as well. He said that clearly this is a mashaqqa or difficulty which can't be avoided. He goes, well, I see him if there's a sabbath, because especially back in the day, we need some space on. And he would have these kind of things, and we need to be understanding of this. So Shaykh Uthaymeen summarizes. He goes, so what can we say? Those guys, the Hanbalis, they carried on with this ruling because they said you're connected to the najasa. Shaykh says, but we will say لكنها منفصلة عنه في الواقع وبينها فاصل وهو هذا الحبل. He goes, truthfully, we're completely separate by this rope. Is that clear, everybody? Any questions so far with respect to the area then of prayer? Any questions? I'm going to check the thing as well. Any questions with respect to the area or the carrying of najasa? Yes.
What if there's a piece of clothing that is extra long?
So we have an extra piece of clothing, like an extra long thobe, for example, yeah.
And a child comes and sits on it and it's urine gets on.
Yeah. So so the question is that if you are praying on a large mat, but you're saying that the corner of the mat, when it's najas, that's fine, then what about if you have a long dress like woman's abaya, for example, and it's longer than normal, and a child then sits on that and urine leaks onto it? The ruling is actually separate, because this is something which is in contact with you as your badan, your clothes. This is your primary covering.
And when I say long, I mean like extra long, like it's lying on the floor, like a dupatta that's like extra long.
Like a dupatta which is really long. Can it get that long? I mean, I know women I've met with these days and they've got some clothes are changing. I was thinking, you think about some bridal gown behavior, man. I mean, that's, they have that train, isn't it? Listen, even the sushi is not that mad, brother. They have the body that goes all the way down there. I mean, the facts are what? That any clothes which are connected to you that have najasa upon it, even on its extremity, that will not be permissible. The prayer will not be valid. It will be seen as urfi, whatever is clothes. Okay? And the solution to that is that if there is, for example, a aspect of one's clothes that is doused in najasa, then it has to be removed unless it uncovers the awra. And if it uncovers the awra, then you have to stop and then get rid of that clothing and change it for something else. Okay, there's no doubt about that. All right, anything with respect to the actual clothing and so on. Okay, so then let's move to this very interesting mas'ala. The Sheikh says, وَمَنْ رَأَى عَلَيْهِ نَجَاسَةً بَعْدَ صَلَاتِهِ. This is right at the top of 231. يعني, oh, sorry, there is a question. How, Farman, it's my boy Farman. How is praying on a mat underneath which there is najasa different to carrying impurity, urine in a container? There is no direct contact with the body in both cases. You understand what he's saying? He's saying, so I'm carrying a urine sample, and you're saying my prayer is invalid, and the nappy, for example, and that's invalid, and the area itself is on top of najasa, and that's valid. In actual fact, they're completely different. Both scenarios are completely different. One, the carrying a urine sample, you are carrying it physically. You are actually doing al-hamal. It is part of you and your person. Number one. Number two, the najasa that you are on has absolutely no connection to you whatsoever, because what you are standing on is a clean and separate and distinct, different area. It's not part of your badan. It's not part of you. And the najasa is actually not even part of your prayer area. It's not even part of your prayer area. Now, Farman is trying to say that if you are basically carrying a urine in a bottle, that plastic is the barrier, and it makes a complete separate separation. It's not just the issue of separation, it's the issue of that we are carrying that as well. It's like the Prophet ﷺ. There's a direct text to prove this, because the Prophet ﷺ, when Jibreel came to him when he was wearing slippers, and he had qadr on it, and he had najasa on it, and Nabi ﷺ then removed the slippers whilst in the salah, and the rest of the companions did so as well. When the Prophet ﷺ finished the prayer and asked them why he did that, because, you know, and they said, because you did, and he said, well, I was told that I had put najasa, I had stepped in najasa or whatever, I had dirt on it, and so, you know, but you guys were okay. What we learn is that the najasa itself was actually part of his actual body, or part of his clothing, part of his actual self or being, even though it wasn't directly connected to him. Whereas the area itself, because then he put the shoes to his left hand side, that does not get affected, because that's not part of the direct thing. Allah. Amreen says, what about the bag that you carry due to medical conditions? So a stoma bag, incontinence bag, and so on, an ostomy, whatever form of the ostomy it is, or even when you are in the hospital with a urine bag. This is a necessity, okay? And this is where we cannot find a solution, all right? And there are actually some scholars, and I have to say that I'm very sympathetic to this position, because I just told you that I don't like to go for haja darura fatwa, okay? If you remember last week, those who were online last week, we spoke about the issue of carrying najasa and how far do you go with that, okay? Because the body is carrying najasa all the time, all right? And some of the scholars, they did go that far, and they said that you got najasa inside you, and that poses a problem. And obviously we've got to just stay slowed up, because, you know, if we start going down that line, then no one can do anything ever at any stage. But it still needs to be dealt with. It sounds really stupid, but it needs to be dealt with, because, as I mentioned last week, the rulings then start to flow when it comes to the issue of an embryo and miscarriage. So when it miscarries, when that comes out, we're going to deal with that as najasa. We're going to stop her praying. The blood itself of that, it's not her menstrual blood normative, because the menstruation is the uterine wall breaking down. Here, the uterine wall has developed into the actual womb. So we are in a different creation. We're in a different stage of creation, or a different stage of the part of the body. So it's not even immediately obvious that the blood that would come out is najasa, but it is. And a woman stops praying. So we do have to be aware. We can't just be lazy, and we do need to be aware of that. But no one ever said that the najasa or the janeen or the embryo or the stillborn is a najis. No one said that. So we do recognize that there are different states at different times what happen inside. So we say that whilst so there's a rule I mentioned last week, that anything which is inside the self is not given a ruling to. It has no ruling. Okay, that's why we don't give a ruling to the embryo, we don't give a ruling to najasa, but we give a ruling when it comes outside. So now the people would say, well, the urine has come outside, so we've got to give it a ruling like we would if you went to the toilet, and you went to the toilet bowl, you'd say that's najasa. Except that this hasn't come outside. The bag is replacing his stomach. You understand what I mean? The bag is a pseudo-intestine. The bag is a pseudo-bladder. The bag is effectively holding what the person can't hold inside. So in my opinion, I mean, it is an issue of semantics. I'm going to allow it, and the other scholars are going to allow it. They're going to say, stop wasting time. It's allowed. He's got no other choice. That's fine. That's the first one given by Mufti. But I'm saying the faqih can come to that conclusion using the fiqh of the fact that that bag is replacing what is his stomach anyway. The answer is the same in both. It is permissible to pray with that bag. Okay, it is permissible to pray with that bag. Hamza is saying, just to clarify, we said someone who's carrying a urine sample for the doctor, his prayer is valid. No, I didn't. I said that a person who is carrying a urine sample must not pray. That's what I said. And likewise, a person who's carrying a baby with a dirty nappy also cannot pray. And I specifically said that for mothers that are always approached by a crying child, or rather they have the baby, they're playing with them, and that's fine to keep them calm. And then suddenly the baby does a nappy. When the baby does a nappy, that's when you have to push them away. If they keep coming, you push them away and you stop contact. Each time contact occurs, you push them away, and then you finish the prayer quickly, and then you tend to them. All right? So if you're carrying a baby, then that's not a problem. As soon as you realize it's done a nappy, it gets put down, laid down, whatever. And if a baby has done a nappy and comes to you, then you avoid picking it up, because the baby, as I said, it is effectively a bag. The nappy, it's a najasa bag, that's what it is. Okay, right. It's much more polite than what Kamal Makki would say. He would say, it's an ugly najasa bag. That's what he would say to any baby. That's, I don't know what age, what's his age limit? He has an age limit. He says that after this age, then they're not ugly anymore. I'm sympathetic to that opinion. Anyway, so let's deal with the issue then of the clothes. If someone now sees najasa, if one observes filth on himself after the prayer but was unaware before that it was there, the prayer is not repeated. Okay, is that clear, everybody? So he's finished the prayer. He's done the prayer. He's finished the prayer, and he then looks at his sleeve. A stain. Let's say that he has a child with a nappy. Says, hold on, what's happening here? Okay, it's staying proper onto his clothes. That's what we're going to play with our worked example. What does Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen say? And by the way, this means either on his hand, it could be a stain on his hand there, or it could be a stain on the sleeve. He goes, the first scenario, when he sees this, وَجَهِلَ كَوْنَهَا فِيهَا. He was unaware that it was there. He was unaware that it was there from before. That's the most important thing in this first scenario. So it's something that he's noticed afterwards. Okay? Then this prayer, okay, it is absolutely fine, and there is no repetition for the prayer. He doesn't, even though there's a possibility right here now that he prayed with najasa all over through the prayer, he does not repeat the prayer for two main reasons. The first reason, go on, what do you think? What's the first reason?
He was unaware.
Okay, that's the obvious one. Okay, it's because he was unaware. He just didn't know. So if he doesn't know something, how can he be held accountable for something that he doesn't know? Okay, he doesn't know whether that happened before. He doesn't know whether it just happened now. He doesn't know, and because he's looking at it, saying, where the heck did that come from? Right? He doesn't know whether that was there yesterday, or just before the prayer, or it just happened right now. And we're not saying that he sees it immediately after the prayer. And even if he does see it immediately after the prayer, he just doesn't know. And when you don't know, you have doubt. And when you have doubt, then doubt never overcomes certainty. And what was certain is that you put on a set period of time ago clean clothes, you did clean wudu, and the only way that that clean state of cleanliness and clean clothes is being broken is with absolute certainty. Not by any maybe speculation, doubt, whatever. Can't be done. Okay, and there's an evidence for that as well. The Prophet ﷺ was approached by a man, okay, and the man said to him that, I'm not sure, I have a feeling that I have passed wind in the prayer. And he yushkilu alayhi, and he was confused about it. He wasn't sure, what do I do? Do I need to go out? And the hadith says, he said, do I leave the masjid? Leaving the masjid, of course, is a phrase for making wudu in the masjid. Okay, so whenever you read this narration, either in Arabic or translation, okay, a lot of folks got confused by that. Actually, it's got nothing to do with going out or doing, rejecting from the jama'ah. It means that I need to go out and make wudu again. So the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يخرج حتى يسمع صوتا أو يجد ريحا. You do not leave until you hear a sound of the passing of wind, or you smell something. Okay, or you smell something, and something here obviously has been left in nakira. What means that it doesn't need to be something, it is an indication of something that has happened. I just want to quickly mention something about this hadith. This hadith has been narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. It is authentic. That the illah for breaking wudu is not what the hadith actually suggests. Okay, so people might think that, oh, that's okay then, I can pass wind in the prayer as long as I don't hear anything and don't smell anything, then it's okay. Does that make sense? Because the hadith, that's what it says. He goes that you do not go make wudu until you hear something or smell something. All right, and it's very important, as Ibn Hajar said, that this is a hadith which is not actually intended by its meaning. Actually, it means something else. It means certainty. That's what the Prophet ﷺ basically saying. You do not make wudu unless you are absolutely certain, because the sound will be something that will bring certainty, or the smell will bring certainty. But if there was no smell and there was no sound, but you are absolutely certain that wind has passed, then you have to make wudu. You have to. You don't say, but the hadith doesn't say that. That makes sense. So because of this, then we learn the principle that if there's anything of uncertainty, then you do not need to break the wudu. You do not repeat wudu. So in this scenario, we said he didn't know. What's the second reason? What's the second reason that this person does not repeat the prayer?
Intention?
No. Think. When is he seeing this? Okay, which means that one? Yeah. The prayer is finished. The action is finished. When the action is finished, the action is finished. Yani when you're seeing something which is after the action, then how do you even know that it was actually even there or not there? The action is gone. And Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen makes a point, a good point. He says that if there's a person, for example, who has doubt about how many rak'ah he did in Asr, 3 or 4, then that's something which is fixed in the prayer and fixed in the immediate aftermath of the prayer, like in the immediate seconds after the prayer. It's not something that if you then get home, okay, or 1 hour later you're sitting there, you don't sit there and think, did I do 3 or I do 4? You'll be a wreck. You'll be destroyed. If you start thinking like that, that's exactly what brings waswasa. And whenever we are counseling folks on waswasa, these are the kind of things we tell them. Yeah, just these silly questions, okay, ignore them. We are a people who act upon certainty. This qaida, this maxim is one of the most blessed maxims that you'll ever come across in life. It makes things very, very easy, and it cures a lot of people from something which is a real big problem for people, OCD and the various forms of doubt, and just the basic form of waswasa as well. Okay, the second scenario. Okay, the second scenario is that this person did know. Okay, did know that the najasa is there. So this is the translation of the part. وَإِنْ عَلِمَ أَنَّهَا كَانَتْ فِيهَا لَكِنْ نَسِيَهَا أَوْ جَهِلَهَا أَعَادَ. Meaning that, however, if he knew that najasa was there and then later forgot or didn't understand it, the prayer must be repeated. So he knew, so he saw it, maybe before the prayer, and then so he looked at it, he goes, oh man, okay, I've got to watch it, then phone call comes, standard, gets involved with the phone call, puts the phone call down, then starts a prayer, because he's forgotten now what's happened. Or he sees it, and then he goes to wash it, and then, he forgets to wash it. He's actually in the process, but then he washes his hands, he doesn't wash the area. Or he forgets about it, it was in the prayer, or he notices it in the prayer. But the thing is that it has happened, and he was at some kind of fault for forgetting, not realizing, not understanding. What does not understanding mean? Sorry. Not understanding means that he's in the prayer and he sees it. So he's there on the prayer and he's like that, and he looks down and he sees it, he sees it there. So what does he see? Let's imagine I mean, we were struggling with this one last week as well. But let's imagine someone has just put some feces there. The bird dropping is not any impure, according to many scholars. But that's why we don't want to use that as an example. Let's say human kind of example. Okay, so that's there now, and he looks at it, and he's not sure what happens. So last week I mentioned that if he shakes it and it falls off, then something which is just completely dry, you know, like been heated and completely dry, doesn't transfer any moisture, then it has not made anything najasa. Okay, a person, I know it sounds gross, but the person could pick it up and throw it off, and as long as there's no, your hands are not sweaty, not wet, and nothing comes across, because it's moisture which transfers najasa. It's very important as a ruling. And dry, there's nothing at all. Okay, so let's assume that a person finds something there, but doesn't know the ruling, and so he carries on with the prayer. This is what the text means. Then afterwards, he's then told, what are you talking about, bro? You had to get rid of that. You had to cut the prayer and wash it off, or you had to extra. So that's what it means. He saw it, but didn't understand it. So that's what the translation means, and that's what the Arabic means. Okay, so let's examine this then, what Shaykh Uthaymeen now says about that. He says, what does he say? So he also then gives all these examples, and actually let's actually read what he says, because he puts it into a nice order. He goes, okay, so we have a person. So in the first example, a man, he prays. As soon as he gives salam, he finds upon his own thobe dry najas. He's absolutely positive that it happened before the prayer, because he hasn't moved and he's inside a room, nothing's fallen down upon him. So he's seen that definitely happened before the prayer. Impossible that it happened inside the prayer, okay, or after the prayer. And what's the second characteristic here? He didn't know about it until he saw after the prayer. Is that clear? He didn't know about it until he saw after the prayer. That's the first example. Okay. He says that, Shaykh Uthaymeen says, ignorance can be divided into 3 categories when it comes to this person. Yani, what does ignorance mean, or what are the parameters of ignorance or being ignorant, yani, as a ruling, compared to this example? Because the first one, that he would know that the najasa is on his skin or on his clothes, not knowing about it. The second form of ignorance would be that he does know that it's there in the prayer, like I just mentioned, but he doesn't know that is this yani from the najasa that is prohibited. So for example, bird dropping. If bird it drops on him and he says, oh, never mind. Yeah? Because, people are being pooped on all the time. I think it happens regularly here, right? You guys have so many birds in this house.
Seen it happen once.
Seen it happen once? You guys follow football? Soccer? If you follow soccer, there's a footballer, he plays for my team. His name's Ashley Young. Miskin, Bachara. He was running along the pitch, and the camera is on him. And he goes, and a bird coming there right in his mouth. and it was a live game. My God, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Literally, the funniest and the craziest thing I've ever seen Miskin straight in. Alhamdulillah, I wasn't praying, but anyway. Okay. So yeah, I just want to just pause and just make sure that I don't lose track here. So the Sheikh says that we give 3 examples of the of jahad. The first scenario is a guy who's found found the najasa upon his clothes. Yes, he's absolutely sure that it happened before. What he was jahil about is that it was there during the prayer. He saw it afterwards. So that's what he was jahil about, it being there during the prayer. But he's seen it after the prayer is finished. But the difference here is that he knows for certain, 100% certainty, that it happened before. What's the ruling on this person? The exact Hanbali text is he has to repeat the prayer. That's what we're saying, right? That's what we're explaining the text. The Hanbalis say that this person, he knew it. If he knew that it's from before, the prayer has to be repeated. Because why? Why?
He was certain.
Yeah, and certain that, and because he was certain, what does that mean has happened? Yeah, so what has happened therefore? Yeah, and what has he contradicted? The condition of maintaining purity throughout the prayer. Okay, because he knew that it happened before. So that's why the prayer is invalid. That's the Hanbalis, that's their first scenario, with the first type of jahl. The second type of jahl is a person, and he is, as I said, he doesn't know what the ruling is. So this is a guy who prays, and he doesn't know about when it happened or not, but in the prayer itself, okay, he sees this place, all right, and he sees this, in the second type of jahl, he looks at it, sees the impurity right there, and says, right, hold on, what does that look like? That's not brown, it's white. So that's not normal feces or urine. So I'm not even sure what that is. Maybe a bird pooped on it, I'm not too sure. Okay, he doesn't know whether it is prohibited. So he carries on. So this person, فَتَبَيَّنَ أَنَّهَا مِنَ النَّجَاسَاتِ الَّتِي لَا يُعْفَى عَنْهَا. So then afterwards he finds out, when he asks the Sheikh says to him, that is najasa, your prayer is now invalid. According to the Hanbalis, prayer is invalid. He was jahil of what? He was jahil of his ruling. He didn't know when it happened or not happened, whatever. He saw it in the prayer, and his jahl was one of being unaware of the ruling of the najasa. The first guy, his jahl was being unaware of that it actually happened to him in the that it was there on during the prayer. The third is الثالث أن يعلم وجودها في الصلاة لكن لا يدري أن إزالتها شرط لصحة الصلاة. يعني he goes, the third scenario is a person who knows that it's there in the prayer, but he doesn't know that you need to remove najasa for the prayer to be authentic. Difference between the 2 and the 3 is that. Yeah. So in the second scenario, the jahl is that he didn't know whether that is najis or not. Okay, because it was white, he doesn't know, is that najis? Is bird poop najis or not? In the third example, it's not about the fact that he knows that it's najis. So he knows that was on my skin, oh my God, that's so and so's poop, when I picked him up, and that's najis. But he doesn't know that you have to have that removed for the prayer to continue. You understand what I mean? Okay, so that's the third scenario. Sheikh says, ففي هذه الأقسام كلها, in all of these 3 examples, the Hanbalis obligate upon this person to repeat the prayer. The Hanbalis obligate upon these people. Why? Because they did not fulfill the condition of purity, and they were all in touch with najasa. They had not prevented themselves from touching. Then he says, أو نسيها. For example, these people, they saw the najasa, but then they did not remember to remove it, and then after the salam they realized. Also exactly the same, he needs to repeat the prayer because he prayed whilst he was impure, and he should have stopped it when he absolutely knew. Shaykh Uthaymeen then says the correct position is that none of these people repeat the prayer, and this is the correct position, and this has been my position, it is the class position, and this is known famously as a position of Ibn Taymiyyah. Okay, and Ibn Taymiyyah, I just want to put to you guys, was one of them. And what I just mentioned, by the way, is a position, the Hanbali school is actually the position of all the schools. Okay, and this is the position of the majority of scholars. And I think that you can see they make sense as well. That's why it was held by the majority of scholars. Okay, but Ibn Taymiyyah came and rocked the boat on that one. He was not alone. There were some members of the Salaf early that also held this position. And Ibn Taymiyyah's position, which was then held by a number of contemporary scholars, and as I said is the class position, is based simply upon the following 2 evidences. And the first is that there is no repeating of any kind of act of worship whether he has forgotten, whether he didn't realize what the nature was, whether he realized the nature was but unaware of the ruling, whether he was unaware of actually what najasa even means, whether he remembered it, whether he forgot to wash it or not, or whether this was before the prayer, he saw it before the prayer, he saw it after the prayer. All of this involves some kind of jahl. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Shaykh Uthaymeen says at the top of page 233, has given us al-qa'ida al-azima al-amma, a general but brilliant and incredible maxim, where he says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. That a soul does not bear any burden more than it can actually bear, and it will have what it earns, and it will only be held accountable for what it does. And then make this dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying effectively, say, my Lord, do not hold us to account for that which we forget and for that which we do mistakenly. And of course, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to make the dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also responded and said that I have accepted your dua as well. Yani, I want to say something to you guys, because obviously this weekend is going to be a tafsir class, and it's a class which is well attended wherever it's gone. And I'll tell you what I think the reason is. And I think that the reason is not just that class, but actually all tafsir. Because I think people really, really struggle in their own private kind of capacity to connect with the Quran. Okay? And I think everyone is just struggling. And everyone realizes that, especially kind of, you know, our Western kind of, you know, non-Arabic speaking kind of folks, or non-classical Arabic with a bit of knowledge, yani speaking folks. When the Quran is read, it is read in a ritualistic way, and everyone feels very, very bad and guilty. Okay, they don't feel that bad or guilty about not knowing about mu'amalat, or they don't feel that bad or that guilty about not knowing about the fiqh of death, etc., etc. But the Quran, they really feel it, especially when they pick it up and it's like something extra, and they read it and they cannot connect with it whatsoever. And that's why it's good that we have tafsir classes and tafsir videos and so on and so forth. But I'll tell you one thing: this problem is actually really, really easily simplified. Okay, really, really easily simplified and then solved by just one simple fact. And it always blew my mind. And if you are studying fiqh right now, it will help you right here as well. And that is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down this book to you, not just to read, but telling you to read it and telling you what to ask him and telling you that he's going to give it as well. Yani, when you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this kind of supporter role as opposed to this kind of director role, okay, because we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the hakim, as al-munzil, as the one who sends it, as the one who is the judging and so on, which of course he is subhanahu. But what we don't see him and what we don't see his book as is got our backs. Okay, yes, it can be very dangerous as well. That's why we make the dua, yani make this Quran, yani hujjatan lana wala alayna, make it evidence for us and not against us. And I can tell you that yes, it is our fault, yani, you know, the misery, doom and gloom bringers, yani, okay, that we are always shouting and threatening and so on and so forth with the Quran in our khutbahs and our, you know, and our keynote speeches and so on and so forth, because we have, you know, believe that anger is the primary kind of anger is the primary motivator that is going to elicit a response in a non-practicing people, and that is our perception. It's not baseless. The Prophet ﷺ would get angry often. He would recite Quran often, but I do believe that the Prophet ﷺ used the Quran far more in a hopeful manner, and that we should be seeing the Quran, even though we make this dua, and even though we know that there is a major problem of people who turn away from the Quran, I think we should be using the Quran and seeing it as it has our backs all the time. And when we come across an ayah like this, let me give you the example of a person who's not connecting with the Quran or has been burnt by the Quran, negative, because of negativity, and a person who sees the Quran in a very positive sense and is living the Quran. When you read this verse and you are group one, you're always thinking that that's applicable to some other nation that came before, thousands of years before. Or that this is relevant to the companions only. Or this is relevant to some other people. Habibi, this is relevant for me. I don't care if you guys don't use it, I'll use it. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like when I read this and I see Shaykh Uthaymeen using it, I'm saying, you know what? You don't have to repeat, you don't have to repeat, you don't have to do this, you're okay with that, you've been let off. I'm thinking like Shaykh Uthaymeen is like such a greedy kind of guy. He's like, if you guys are not going to connect, and you guys are not going to use it, and you guys are going to ignore it, and you guys are going to think that this is a verse of theory that only applies, well, I'm going to use it. You know what I'm saying? You guys, knock yourselves out. Well, I'm all over this. So honestly, when I read him, and I've seen him use this before, I see the way that he speaks about this. He feels so connected to this verse, like he really lives this verse. It's like he really understands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent it down for me to use for myself, to use for my students, for me to use it as a tool to allow people to chill in a difficult scenario. These are not people, no one goes into a prayer intentionally wanting to pray with najasa, knowing that it's not allowed to wear something for najasa. I forgot. Or if I went in and I tried to do my best, I made wudu, I did ghusl, I did a class, whatever, but that teacher, he didn't tell me about bird food, or he didn't tell me about X. And I had it on the thing, I wasn't sure, but I thought it was okay. That's a mistake. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, we don't put logic against Allah, but He has told us that, and here's a killer. Not only has He told us, He told you to make dua to Him to say this, and if you say it, then I'm going to give it to you as well. It's like He's giving it away for free. It's not like He's just telling you. He's saying that this is yours, right? And we're the ones ignoring it and thinking, and we're taking the hard options, and we're taking, we're going really, really, I understand that we need to be legal and careful and so on. But I'm telling you, man, Sheikh Uthaymeen, the reason people love him is they always saw him as someone who made the deen easy without selling out. Because making deen easy is associated with selling out, isn't it? Or being liberal, or being someone who's been bought, or someone who's, trying to keep his paymasters happy, or, what I'm trying to say? And I get that. But the difference with Sheikh Uthaymeen, in truth, is that he makes the deen easy, and he is absolutely hardcore down the middle, sticking to the rules, no fluffing around. And that's when you understand, when we're trying to express to other people, this deen really is easy. And fiqh does make things easy for people and not more difficult. So that's the specific evidence. Sheikh, he says, وَحَذَا الرَّجُلَ الْفَاعِلَ هَذَا الْمُحَرَّمْ كَانَ جَاهِلًا أَوْ نَاسِيًا وَقَدْ رَفَعَ اللَّهُ الْمُؤَاخَذَ بِهِ وَلَمْ يَبْقَ شَيْءٌ يُطَالَبْ بِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this man, he was either forgetful or he didn't know. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has removed the accountability from him. And there is nothing which is requested from this guy. We do not want anything from him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not requesting this person to do anything. He made a mistake or forgot something, that's it. He goes, he goes, this is a general evidence. It's a general qaida that we use to get out of many scenarios. He goes, but we also have a specific evidence as well. The specific evidence, which I actually already mentioned, is the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He prayed in his slippers, and on them there was a najasa, and Jibreel told him, and he did not make him repeat the prayer or start it again. And he said, if the prayer is not invalidated at the beginning of the prayer, then the rest of the prayer is also not invalidated. The rest of the prayer is not invalidated. Sheikh then says, he goes, what if someone then turns around and says to us, okay, then ما الذي منع قياسها على ما إذا صلى محدثا وهو جاهل أو ناسٍ. He goes, okay, then according to your logic, Sheikh, he's questioning, he's putting the devil's advocate. He's saying that what if someone then says to you, that means that if a person doesn't make wudu, or forgets to make wudu, or doesn't know you need to make wudu, and prays, then that's okay. So I'll ask you a question. What's the ruling on a person who forgets to make wudu or doesn't make wudu? Salah is invalid and he has to repeat the prayer. So it's a good question. There's a contradiction there, isn't there? There's a contradiction. No? We're making that guy pray again. He forgot to make wudu. Yes? We're making him pray again. Absolutely. If he says, I prayed all 5 prayers like that, all 5 prayers has to be prayed again. We found that he was wearing najasa upon his clothes, which is an absolutely clear prohibition. Okay? And we're saying, no, you're right. What's the difference? Yeah. No?
Because there's specific evidence that you need wudu for the salah.
Okay. There's specific evidence that you're not allowed to carry najasa. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. Yeah? Go on.
Some knowledge needs to be known by everyone.
This is fundamental knowledge. That argument's a good one. That there's a difference between key knowledge, fard ayn, or ma'lum min ad-din bid-darura, or whatever. Your argument is that some knowledge is fundamental and other minor knowledge is not so, and therefore we can kind of be easy on that. That's not the case. So is avoiding najasa. That's why we are called, that's why we're covering the conditions of the prayer in the chapter of the prayer, and we've said that without them, the prayer cannot even be established. So they're fundamental to the prayer. It's almost like they're part of the prayer. But they are before, yeah.
Because there's evidence, there's stronger evidence of
so that's the same argument. You're saying that one is more established, another one is like a lesser.
No, but there's nothing that the Prophet is not that he did pray and he did not. There's no.
What you're trying to say is that we have nothing from the Prophet ﷺ where he didn't have wudu and prayed, and he then not repeat the prayer kind of thing.
Whereas for the najasa.
Yeah, but that argument could be refuted by we don't have an evidence that that didn't happen as well. You understand what I'm trying to say? As far as I know, I cannot remember a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was in that scenario. We have the evidence of him not starting the prayer and then going to make wudu, actually ghusl, all right? But that's different. Shaykh Uthaymeen says the following, it's very interesting. He said the answer is because to leave out wudu is to leave out something which has been obligated. Whereas, because wudu is a ma'mur bihi, something which is obligatory and has been absolutely requested from insan upon a way of obligation. When najasatu shay manhiyun an, whereas najasa is something which is prohibited. So we have two separate categories of reality. That which is you are commanded to do, ma'mur bihi, and manhiyun an, that which you are prohibited from. Okay? And I wrote about this on Facebook, and yes, subhanAllah, a couple of years ago, and I wanted to post it again as well because it's something which many people forget, and there's a lot of benefits in this issue. I might do it tomorrow or today even. I'll tell you why it's so important, because more people sin. Many people who sin, they start to lose hope, and they then leave that which they are obligated. And we need to help these people and explain to them that these are two, actually, although they're spiritually and holistically connected, but legally they're unconnected. But not only legally are they unconnected or disconnected or separate, but actually throw the baby out with the bathwater, as we say, okay? If we completely, and this is what happens. A person starts falling into sin, falls into zina, falls into clubbing, music, blah, blah, whatever he falls into. And he starts to say, well, I'm the worst, I'm a munafiq, I'm a dog, I'm this, I can't believe it. I feel ashamed now to make wudu, I feel ashamed to pray, I feel whatever. And the thing is that actually this thing, right, is recoverable, and this is not recoverable. To leave the obligations is not, or to leave that which you are commanded to, you cannot recover from that. It is virtually it's all over. Whereas doing something which is prohibited, always can recover from that. And that's the example of Iblis and Adam alayhi salam. It's the big comparison. And Adam alayhi salam did something which was prohibited, and he made tawbah, and he came back to the very, very best. In fact, he was better than ever before. And Iblis, he did not do what was obligated, and yes, he didn't seek tawbah, but the main thing is the obligation. And there's always a way back. And that's why I always say, and you hear me use this phrase again and again and again, always stay in the game. Always stay in the game. I don't care how much you're sinning, I don't care how much of a person you are, I don't care how evil you are, I don't care how difficult the prayer is, don't abandon it entirely. We all know that, subhanAllah, that Fajr is difficult. We all know that Isha late in summertime is difficult, and you might slip and you might miss. But if you start to say, I missed that one and I'll sack off now this, that I am not worthy of the others, then you are just being played like a fiddle by shaitan, because that's exactly what he did, and he lost out. He's going to make you lose out as well. I'm saying to you that it's haram for a scholar, haram for any Muslim, to say to another person, you know what, you're weak, I know you're weak, and you only pray one a day. That's haram. You can never say that. It's not your deen to say that to someone else. But what you can say to another person is to don't give up on whatever you can do. I know that we're saying the same thing, but is there Zameen Asman Farak about what I'm saying? Yani this way and that way. There I'm taking law position into my own hands and trying to make it out that I have the right to say that you don't need to pray. Or we say to someone who's struggling with hijab, you don't need to wear hijab. I spoke about this in class, I wrote about this as well. It's completely haram. People were going around telling, this was that story of some guy, who thinks he has knowledge and says to a person who comes to him, that I'm struggling with my hijab and I don't have it now, whatever. Okay, take it off, no worries. I don't want to take it off. Okay, take it off and you'll become strong one day and then you'll put it back on again. Okay? And then the person then came back, 6 months later and in hijab. I want to thank you so much. And, now the example is given then that, you see, this is wisdom. He's writing to the course. This is the wisdom of the teacher. You need to be able to let people, get some steam off whatever. It's not only this haram, not only is this person jahil, but what he did is haram, but if he goes any further, he goes into kufr as well. He has not the right to say to anyone who's struggling or difficult, and we are more aware of the people who are struggling and difficult, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help them and forgive them, but we will not say to them that hijab is not farq or hijab is not applicable upon you. We will say that we understand your situation, and you just try your best. And no one's here to judge you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafur Rahim, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's deen will not be changed. And you will, inshallah, you will change. You'll get stronger. But this obligation remains, and you just carry on doing what you can to keep fighting. That's what you meant to say. Because it's not your right to say that. You can take this off and that off and do this and that. So, anyway, it's very important, like I was saying again. So, back to the point. The wudu to do is obligated. The najasa to stay away from is prohibited. And the person is requested to leave it. To leave the prohibition. He's requested to leave the prohibition. And I'll finish on this point. Okay. It's not possible to do a qiyas, because that was the question. The first question was, can we make an analogy then, and then therefore say that a person then who makes wudu or doesn't make wudu, then he also can pray, and it's not a problem. We said we can't make the qiyas. It's qiyas ma'al, because in the both scenarios, one is obligated to do, one is prohibited. Once you've done the thing which is prohibited, there's nothing more to do. You've done it. Whereas if you did not do which is obligated, you still have to obligatorily do it. So there's completely two different categories, even though they feel like the same. And that's why it's so important to be able to go into detail and look at the nuts and bolts behind the issue to understand the fiqh. Okay? So anyway, and Shaykh says, so be very careful about this difference. He goes, he goes into an example. Obviously, the Hanbalis, they believe that camel meat is something which is breaking the wudu. Okay? And some scholars do believe that. I know it's not my class position, but there are scholars that believe that. He goes, so if there is a person who ate the camel meat and he did not know that it breaks wudu and he prayed, okay, then he finds out, then he has to repeat the prayer. Shaykh Uthaymeen says he has to repeat the prayer. Why does he need to repeat the prayer? That what? Correct. Because it's correct. Because he goes, this is different from the najasa, this is ma'mur bihi. You have been obliged to not eat camel meat. And therefore you are leaving an obligation. And as he said, that's like leaving wudu. And so in this case, he will make it up. Obviously for us, it's not a problem. Anyway, he says this is position Shaykh al-Islam, and that's it. He goes, this is also, what we just said, is also a riwayah from Imam Ahmad himself. It's not the madhab, okay? It's not the madhab, meaning the madhab is very clear. If you do all of these scenarios, you have to repeat the prayer. You have to repeat the prayer. But there is a narration from Imam Ahmad that said that he does not need to repeat the prayer. And this is common, as we said before. Imam Ahmad will have some narrations which are completely opposite to each other. You can understand if you've got a little bit of variation. But in one he's saying that you repeat the prayer, and the other one he's saying that he doesn't repeat the prayer. Anyway, that's the position of the Taymiyyah, and that is our lesson today. So we'll now do questions, okay? We've got quite a few things here. What do we have? How about a baby toddler who has pooped in his diaper and either crawls over or walks over and sits on your prayer rug and would not move from you in the middle of the prayer? Okay, that's good. All right, that's a good example. Here, as long as you don't touch the baby, you're okay. All right, the idea is If you were to push the baby away and this kind of stuff, that's not a problem. But if you're carrying the baby and holding the baby and picking up the baby, that's where the problem is. And the baby's sitting on the side. I mean, what you would do here is what we all do when children are praying, okay? What do? Pick it up, 1-2 bounce, kick it for a field goal. So what you do is you lean over and you hold the baby and you push it to the side. And that's it. Okay, you're allowed to touch the baby itself to move the najasa. It's like the act of taking the chappal off. It's like the act of flicking najasa off. That's drying and so on. So the baby would be moved if you are unable to prostrate, except to prostrate on the baby effectively. So you just move the kid out of the way. Okay? And then the other question was, would you then, following on from what you said, allow a person to carry a urine sample that has been obtained in a way in which it has not been released from the private parts? Always, you blow my mind. Would you then, following on from what you said, allow a person to carry a urine sample that has been obtained in a way in which it has not been released via the private parts, via the penis, i.e. from another method, if that is even possible? Actually, I don't understand even what that means. Is he referring to the stoma bag and taking it from the stoma? He's taking it from the colostomy bag, right? So he's saying, no, I wouldn't. No, okay, I get what he's trying to say. No, always, because that ruling of the urine is, if that's what you want, if that's what I'm understanding, then the urine that is in the bag, and I said that's a qiyas for his stomach, that is when it's in the bag. But when it comes out of the bag, then the ruling on the urine is like when it comes out of your stomach or your bladder. Yeah. Okay. All right. Those questions are done. All right. From here, guys. Yeah.
Sure. What about if you have a child and they urinate on the carpet that you pray at home?
Yes.
And how do you purify that for a baby girl as opposed to a baby boy?
Yeah. So a baby girl or a baby boy who's eaten, same way. You just wash it. That's it. That's it. You don't need to be any specific times, any specific manner, any whatever. You just got to get it clean. And clean is not by smell. Clean is as best as possible with respect to whatever you're using physically. Okay? Yeah.
What about praying in a park where manure is being used in the grass, etc.?
What about praying in a car or praying in a
park?
Yeah, you mean on grass?
Yeah.
Well, the problem being that there might be something hidden.
No, manure is being used as fertilizer or something like that.
So if it is in an area where there is fertilizer, then that should be avoided. But we're going to be covering that in a bit of detail in maybe next week or week after next. Okay? Yeah.
You said that, I'm just wondering what carrying urine in a container.
Yes.
What is like the allowed degree of preparation? Suppose you want to pray in an RV and it's like najasa like in the RV where
Yes. I get it. So what you're saying is, so first of all, let me just make it clear that, this whole idea of urine samples and carrying whatever, this is not obviously the fiqh, this is our modern day application. Yeah? I just want people to be aware that carrying najasa means, pulling it, pushing it, being connected to you in a direct fashion. Okay? The RV, or like a big caravan, all right, it goes by urf. So, for example, if there is an understanding that that is a separate area, then it's a separate area. Then it's fine. That's basically how it is. So, it might be, like, some of the hotels today, right? They don't have doors anymore. The toilet, Toilet, they don't have doors. Or they have slidey doors. Or they have, like, glass. It's like some stupid glass level nonsense. I don't know who's designed this. Wallah, it's crazy. Wallah, it's crazy. So, what do? Can you pray in the bedroom? Yes, you can. Even if you can have smell coming from the bathroom, or you can see the bathroom, or let's imagine that you're there with your partner and you can see them in the bathroom. Okay? How would it work? What happens here is that the earth takes over to understand what is your living space. Despite this attempt to make it all some kind of, modern, one space, living space, whatever it's called. Yeah? There's still a clear, I'm in bedroom, or I'm in whatever, and that's in the bathroom, and so that's okay. So likewise, if there's a shelf and it's over there, that does not affect what you're doing over here. Okay? How would you exit the prayer if you realize you have not done wudu? You just exit. We're going to be covering that later on this year. You do not need to do any salam or anything. As soon as you know that you don't have wudu, your prayer is broken anyway. You do not go assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You don't say anything. You just walk off. Depending upon where you are, if you're in the middle of the prayer and you just pass wind, then I suggest that you scream or something and hold your nose. And imagine like it's all bleeding and you're dying or something, just to protect your own basicity. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's not a shari requirement. That's for your own basicity. I'm saying. What about when the toddler with a soiled diaper just climbs on you or attaches himself and you can't shake him off? What do you mean you can't shake him off? What kind of nonsense is that? You can shake off a kid, man. Come on, bro. Come on, Nasheen, bro. Nasheen's having a laugh. She's a tough girl, man. She's at Hajj and she's tough. But obviously what she means is the kids getting clingy, isn't it? Yeah, and they're clinging and they're clinging and they're clinging. So you just keep pushing away, keep pushing away, keep pushing away. And I think what needs to happen is a judgment call needs to be made where you felt you made so much movement that your prayer is over. But the legality of the prayer is still there. If you keep pushing a person away, you're still in the prayer, it's still okay. There's going to come a point where you think, man, I've just lost all semblance of what I was saying or doing. But I am very loath to tell people that. I hate more than anything to tell people to leave the prayer when their prayer goes bad. Because once you open that door, people start then giving themselves new reasons to leave the prayer. I wasn't a great prayer. I thought of my mom. I thought of my work. I thought of my ex. I thought of my dad. You start to this waswasa, then that's it. Shaitan's all over you. Don't ever give him that first chance. Always stay in the prayer. Okay? But there's no doubt that if there's, you're literally having a fight, he pulls off the hijab, and then you slap the kid, get the hijab's back, and the kid's all over you, then smears you with poop, whatever. There's gotta be a cut off, where you say, "Khalas, you won." We'll just call it quits for that. Right. We'll just take a few more questions and then we will call it. Wassalam. Yeah.
And then came out somehow you do this.
After so you're saying there's a person, they're not sure if they're in wudu for the prayer. So they say, I'm going to make wudu. Yes? They go to the bathroom to make wudu. They made wudu. Oh, okay, all right. So then the next thing that they remember, they can't remember whether they made wudu or not. After they definitely went to the bathroom. And then, what are you saying? Then they stand before the prayer or after the prayer now? Right. So now they're standing for the prayer and they're saying to themselves, what did I do? Yeah, so they've got to obviously make a judgment call. Okay. I have to say that we did cover this, and there is actually a lot of detail. It's actually quite complicated. Okay. And it's all based upon what was the state of the person before the act, before the idea and the doubt came. And the final ruling is based upon the state that one was in before the actual act was meant to happen. And there's a number of scenarios and a number of options, and you choose it. And it's in the LP notes, I think, from year 5 or year 4. To answer your question simply, okay, once you know you've gone to the bathroom, and once you know that you do not go to the bathroom except to make wudu, because that's the only thing you did and you went for, then that's your assumption. That's your assumption. Because I'm assuming that person is going to look around and use their brain, yeah, in their clothes, see the wet sleeves. If not, go and have a look at the towel, see it wet. That's what they have to do. But if they did everything and it's inconclusive, like they know that other people have been using the bathroom, so it's wet because of them, and you can't work it out, then you assume that you've made wudu, because that's what you knew that you definitely didn't have, and then you went to go and do it, and you're sure you went and did it, but you can't be sure. So once you've gone and made that move, then that's fine. If you are not sure you didn't make that move, you are not in wudu because you are certain that you were not in wudu before. But if you are certain that you made wudu in the thingy, but then can't remember actually what happened, then you go upon that, but that certainty. Like I said, there's a number of scenarios. It gets a bit messy. Yes.
If you eat camel meat and don't know that it breaks your, why does that have to do with the prayer?
This is only if the issue about camel meat and then eating it, not knowing that it breaks the wudu, and then finding out that it does, and then repeating the prayer, is only if you are a Hanbali and you follow that opinion. This is a minority opinion.
praying and like, don't finish the prayer and
Yeah.
you don't realize
That you had najasa?
or like this happens.
Correct. That's exactly the reason why it was mentioned. It's different from those.
No,
It,
not if you have the chance. If you pray and you finish the prayer and you realize that you have
yes.
then you don't because
No, you do repeat the prayer. Okay? That's why Shaykh Uthaymeen gave the example of the camel meat. He said that if you did not make wudu and afterwards realized you didn't have wudu, you have to make wudu. Why? Because you left an obligation. He then said that's the same for camel meat. Why? Because you left an obligation. And he said it's not the same for the najasa upon the thinking. Why? Because you were unaware and or because you left that which was a prohibition. Yeah? Or you did that which was a prohibition. Any other questions? Okay, Jazakumullah khair, guys. So inshallah we'll see you on Friday for University of Toronto. Yeah, is there any further thingy? At the oh, the Earth Sciences building. I've been there before. Yeah, I've taught there before. And the next week's lesson is going to be 8:30, which is 3:30. Sorry, 8:50 UK time, which is 3:50 EST, and Canadian, and Eastern, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, folks. Is it? Yeah. Okay, don't get me confused here. You know this one. Okay, barakallahu feek. Okay, Shaz, we're done. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're going to do salah, folks. Okay, don't run off. Okay, Salat al-Asr.